It's election season in the year 3000, and the race for the presidency of Earth is in full swing. Leela, appalled by Fry's lack of concern for the political process, drags the rest of the Planet Express crew along to register to vote. Meanwhile, a mining accident causes the price of titanium to skyrocket, and with it, the value of Bender's metal body. Seizing the opportunity to become fabulously rich, Bender sells his body for a sizable sum. Alas, his joy is short-lived as he begins to miss the hedonistic lifestyle in which he can no longer participate now that he's reduced himself to just a head. The others carry Bender back to the pawn shop to retrieve his body, only to learn that it's been sold to someone else. As the robot wallows in misery, the nightly news broadcast announces a new latecomer candidate into the presidential race, the head of 37th President of the United States, Richard M. Nixon. A reporter at the press conference asks if anybody is only allowed to serve for 2 terms, how Nixon plans to run again, only for the ancient Republican to reveal that he possesses a new body. He steps out from behind the podium to reveal his jarred head now sits atop Bender's shiny metal frame. Both out of a desire to reclaim Bender's body and out of fear of what damage Nixon might cause if re-elected, Fry, Leela, and Bender head off to Washington, D.C. to stop him. Direct confrontation gets them nowhere, so that night they sneak into his hotel room to steal the body. Unfortunately, they awaken the candidate, and in his fury he tells them of his big plans for the presidency and all the horrors he tends to inflict. As Nixon threatens to call the police, Bender reveals that he recorded this entire conversation and will release the tape, destroying Nixon's campaign if he doesn't return his body. Cursing the robot's ingenuity, Nixon hands over Bender's body in exchange for the tape. Election day arrives and, in a shocking upset, Nixon wins the presidency. Who knows what disasters now await in the next 4 years of Earth politics. Welcome to Space Podcast 3000, where the future is in the past.
The election episode.
Oh, man.
How are we gonna do this?
Oh, the early 2000s and politics.
Yeah, so, if you've listened to our previous episodes, you probably know that we talk a lot about, politics and social issues anyway, but this episode is going to be getting especially political because such a thing is really unavoidable.
The thing that really kind of struck me most about this episode was it did have a extremely horseshoe theory view on politics. They literally have a clone running against himself. And it really doesn't get more obvious of saying that both sides are the same than that, which may have been closer to the truth in the early 2000s, but absolutely not now.
Yeah, nowadays, well, back then it was just capitalists versus capitalists. Now it's outright fascists versus capitalists.
Right.
But, Jack Johnson and John Jackson are both just the most bland, milquetoast, white bread centrists I have ever seen in reality or fiction. Oh my god, it's Joe Biden versus Joe Biden.
Which is, I'm sure is part of the joke.
I suppose, but this whole episode is based on a very Amerocentric view of politics.
Even down to the fact that that they're running for president of Earth.
Yeah, I have a feeling that a lot of the jokes here probably would not make a whole lot of sense to someone overseas. Bunny89, who keeps leaving multiple comments in all of our YouTube uploads, you're in the UK, leave a comment. What was your read on this episode? Because I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, in the United States, you have to register to vote. You have to go out and vote on a particular day.
And yeah, you have to take time off work in order to vote, which a lot of people can't do.
Yeah. Try even saying, I'm not registered to vote, and I'm not vaccinated either. That's honestly a lot less funny after the year we've just had.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially right now when there was an election during a pandemic. Yeah. that.
And now people deliberately not getting vaccinated because that's also been politicized.
Let's just hope that the diseases Fry would have been vaccinated against have gone extinct by this point.
Well, who
Which
knows?
means he's not vaccinated against the new diseases.
Oh dear.
That's even worse.
Honestly, just Fry and Bender's whole attitude in this episode, I was just screaming inside the whole time because being
that why
able
you
to
muted?
not... What?
Is that why you muted?
Yeah, just being able to not care about politics is a massive privilege. For a lot of people, this shit is literally life and death. If you can
Very much
afford to not care, you are insulated. A lot of people do not have that luxury. So these days especially, I have no patience for people who say, well, I'm not too interested in politics. Well, I don't care. Just, this shit is important!
Yeah, I can't do much else than just agree. It really is important these days. I mean, it always has been, but I feel as though it's just getting more extreme as time goes on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you keep in mind that the time that this was made, and yeah, the early 2000s, I don't know if I'm just projecting my own memories of that time, but yeah, I was not terribly interested in politics because it did seem very similar. The most recent election at the time was like the Clinton-Gore one.
I mean, okay, I didn't vote, I didn't pay attention to politics when this episode first aired, but I was literally 7 years old.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I was an infant, so... Well, a couple years old by this point, but nonetheless, too young to understand any of that.
I don't think there's one line that I'm not sure I doubt was intentional at the time, but I find it funny when like Nixon and Ford are both saying we've found that that voting is very irrelevant to the process, and I get the fact that they were appointed, not elected, but also the fact that they're both Republicans. It kind of it kind of taints that claim, especially knowing what we know now.
Yeah, with the entire Republican Party on like the state level just pushing everything they can to just make it legal to throw out the results of a vote because, they lost in 2020. They don't want to let that happen again.
And all the voter suppression methods.
Which I mean, is just so goddamn disgusting, honestly.
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier. We've gone from having two, capitalist business parties to having a capitalist party and an outright fascist authoritarian party.
Yeah, if that's one thing you want to claim the 2000s were better about, is like, yeah, make people say make America great again. No, make politics boring again.
Yeah, I wish politics could be boring again. I fucking wish that no one had to care. But again, even when it was boring, it was still a matter of life and death for a lot of people. I wish it wasn't. That's what I'm hoping for. I hope we can reach a world where politics become largely inconsequential. But that's not the world we're in right now. That's not a world that has ever existed.
Oh, absolutely not.
So just let's talk about like the actual episode for a minute. I love this episode's cold open, the first appearance of the whole running joke of the scary door.
Yeah.
Was it the first appearance, or wasn't there a previous one?
No, I think that was the first one.
Yeah, I think this was the first one. Although, fun fact, the iconic door opening of the Twilight Zone that they were making fun of here, that was actually only used for its final 2 seasons out of a total of 5. The majority of the most iconic episodes that everyone remembers, including Time Enough at Last, the one that they were very specifically parodying in this episode, did not use that opening.
Yeah, because I've seen a few episodes here and there, but I don't really remember a door.
It is in there. Sci-Fi Channel used to have a Twilight Zone marathon. Like they would show every episode for like a week or like a weekend.
Yeah, they did this every year around New Year's, and that was actually how I first got into the show, watching those reruns.
The New Year's, or sometimes they would do it for Independence Day. And yet, there's a lot of really good episodes, and they've aged extremely well in many cases, because they're still talking about culturally relevant things. But for that matter, what exactly is the moral lesson of Time Enough at Last? Really, it just seems like a guy getting screwed over by fate.
Yeah, so according to Rod Serling, the creator of the show, that episode was about him getting punished for his misanthropy, which personally I take issue with that because the whole episode he's just getting constantly shit on by everyone around him.
Yeah.
And given his circumstances, his misanthropy is completely understandable. It is a classic episode, but it's one of the ones where the moral just is really iffy or doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And it's just, I mean, episodes of The Twilight Zone really fall into one of two categories. One, a moral lesson that is surprisingly resonant even today, or two, hey, wouldn't it be fucked up if this thing happened?
I'm Rod Sterling.
Yeah, Rod Serling, I love him. He was very much ahead of his time.
And he wrote pretty much all the episodes, too, which is amazing.
No, he wrote a bunch of them, but saying pretty much all is incredibly wrong. And in fact, a lot of episodes were based on short stories, in fact. Not all, but like several episodes had
He
that.
did write a lot of them.
He did write quite a few, yes. The Twilight Zone is one of my all-time favorite television shows. The original, of course.
And they've had several attempts to reboot it, and they were decent, I suppose.
Yeah, the most recent one was actually pretty good.
Then there's like other people trying to copy the formula, and it's just not good.
Yeah, like, if you've ever seen Tales from the Dark Side or The Outer Limits, those shows had their moments, but...
Well, Tales from the Dark Side, Outer Limits, Tales from the Crypt, they all have their own merits. They all do it slightly differently.
Yeah, but nothing really hits quite the way The Twilight Zone did. Like I said, it's one of my favorite shows of all time. I've seen every episode multiple times. I even have the whole freaking complete series Blu-ray release.
Nice.
And it is such a good show.
What about Black Mirror?
Yeah, I was about to mention that one. I've heard lots of jokes of that one.
I have wanted to watch Black Mirror, but then I'm like, I've heard just how grimdark and depressing this show is, and like,
Yeah.
And in 2021, I don't think I need that right now.
Yeah, Black Mirror is very heavy and very depressing. There's a couple happier episodes, but for the most part, it is very much just like...
Pessimistic?
Yeah, it's very pessimistic. But what's interesting is a lot of people like reduce it to technology bad, but if you actually watch the show, technology is always very neutral, and it's always people misusing it that causes the problems.
I think that's people projecting then.
Which is honestly what's happening.
Yeah, like, for instance, an episode that really stuck with me is Archangel, where the whole plot is, it's sort of like the whole chip your child to track where they are, except it goes a step further with it, where it's like, you get a little tablet and you can see everything your child sees and hears, and you can, like, block them out and make it impossible for them to see things that would traumatize them or just a whole bunch of stuff. But the problem in this episode is clearly less the technology itself, because, like, the mother uses it to prevent her daughter from seeing, like, the things that might trigger her and whatnot. But where it causes problems is where she starts getting, like, controlling and abusive and invasive with it. And she destroys her daughter's trust in her and ends up losing her.
So I guess the people that look at these things and say, like, see technology bad, it's like, that's just them projecting that they don't want to control their own lives and they want technology to control it for them, but because they don't know how to control it themselves, obviously that means technology is the problem.
Yeah, again, it's not the technology, it's what you do with it.
Yeah, in recent months, one of my parents suggested to me we all download a tracking app, and I was just so extremely uncomfortable with the idea.
Ugh, yeah.
As well you should be.
A message to parents. I doubt anyone listening to this is a parent, but just in case, trust your goddamn kids. They will trust you more in turn if you give them a little free space. Please.
And as a corollary to that, if you ask them what's going on and you lose your shit, that means they're not going to tell you what's going on anymore.
Yeah, like, also, if they confess to you that, like, they did something wrong and they tell you the truth about it rather than trying to hide it, and you punish them anyway, now you're just going to make them try to hide it, and you're going to make them lie to you.
Well,
Yeah, that's why I've ended up in situations I have been, because, I didn't have anyone to tell. I just did not trust my parents to deal with it normally and not freak out.
Well, of course, as a corollary to that, if they do something that does require some sort of restitution or punishment, like they did something wrong and it needs to be remedied, that has to be included in the punishment. It can't be just, I did something wrong, you need to fix it. It's like, no, I did something wrong, I need to fix it. That's the thing.
Oh, definitely. Just be proportionate with it. Don't scream and, like... My point is, like, don't make it as severe as it would be if, like, they had lied to you about it. Because then you're just going to encourage them to lie and try to hide it so that they don't get in trouble at all.
Trying to delay the inevitable punishment as much as you can.
Yeah, we've gotten really off topic here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get back onto the... let's get back on topic.
Yay, politics.
So, the Planet Express crew registering to vote. So what's your guys' party affiliation? I'm a registered Tastycrat, but I find myself persistently infuriated by the party establishment these days.
I just want people to be nice to each other.
So, yeah, Democrat, basically.
Yeah, I also just... I was burying my head in my hands, and the professor was saying, the problem with both parties is they always want to give your tax dollars to the less fortunate. That is the exact opposite of our real-life problem.
Right.
I think that's the joke, that's what people think.
That's what people think, but, like, we have our tax dollars going to subsidize the rich, not actually help people who need it. Anything, like, that actually helps people who need it is means-tested to shit.
Part of the joke is him saying that's the problem, is they want to give money to the less fortunate. It's like, that's how it should work! The people who need the money need to get the money because otherwise they can't survive.
Yeah, that's what tax dollars are for, helping people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, building the roads and the infrastructure and having a safety net for people who need it.
Schools, libraries.
And honestly, if that's what my tax dollars went to, I wouldn't have any trouble paying it. But they say that the money is going to help people, but they're not getting help, and then the money is actually being put into extremely loud cars driving down your road that you may have to edit this out. And it's still going.
I think I'm just going to leave that in just because it's very funny.
So, and instead of money going to military, which gets such an insane amount of the budget, when, like, if money did actually go to help people, I probably wouldn't mind paying my taxes that much.
Same. Like, oh my god.
Plus, you know, we could have all the math done for us. Like, the government has all that information. We just have to, like, double check.
Oh yeah, that's not even getting into, like, TurboTax and shit.
Yeah, which is really getting off topic, this is supposed to be about politics, which taxes are tangentially related to, but yeah, let's wind back to...
I mean, at the end of the day, politics are the core of everything because that affects the world we live in, which is where all this other stuff... Politics affect things, people.
Yeah. Today on Amazing Insights.
Man, there are some really good jokes of the third parties in this scene, though.
The Green Party is just all the green aliens.
The brain slugs.
People for the ethical treatment of humans.
The National Ray Gun Association. Like, this was a very clever scene.
The joke about testing products on humans is kind of funny because, like, shouldn't they technically have trials that involve humans?
Technically, yes.
They do, but the big thing is, like, they usually test on animals, mostly cosmetics, just to make sure that it doesn't cause any, like, dermatological problems.
Right. The problem, though, with animal testing isn't so much that you're testing on animals specifically. The problem is that animals can't consent to it.
But even then, with testing on animals, you know, their immune systems don't react the same way humans would.
The thing is, usually they try to pick animals that have very similar immune systems. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, obviously, but they pick animals that do specifically have ones that are close enough that they can at least learn something from it. They do eventually do human testing, but they do the animal testing to make sure that it's safe enough for human testing. Because if you have something that delivers terrible scars and burns when used on a human, that is really bad, because like this person did sign up for it, but they're permanently disfigured, which is like, you'd rather that happen on a lab animal that was bred specifically for this type of thing.
I mean, the idea of deliberately breeding animals for that specific thing is kind of fucked up when you think about it.
Yeah, but the breeding them specifically for this is the better alternative from like just getting random animals and like not caring about what their welfare is or where they came from, or just getting random animals like out of the wilderness or something. Like what else are you supposed to do, you know?
I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily disagree. It's a very complex issue, and I'm kind of ambivalent. Like, I can definitely see valid arguments for and against. I'm just pointing out that it is a little screwed up when you think about it. That's all.
Of course.
Also, shouldn't you know if your product's gonna at least have some sort of reaction, because just how chemicals react with one another?
Not necessarily.
That's the thing. There's so much that can be learned from. There's so much that can be learned from testing that can't be learned just through math or just chemical studies.
So let's move on. Honestly, I think selling his body for cash seems short-sighted, even by Bender's standards. Bender's a hedonist. How is he going to enjoy himself without a body? Like, once the high from having that money wears off, he'll be filled with regret, which, of course, is exactly what happens.
He just wanted to get ahead in life.
Right.
Ugh.
He should have quit while he was ahead.
You two. Sometimes.
We had to do it.
Come on, yeah, those were the obvious jokes.
Anyway, so the head museum has the Hall of President's Heads.
I find it interesting that their choice of like worst possible one to be president again in the future is Nixon.
I mean, that's kind of an uncontroversial bad president, given the whole scandal.
Yeah, true. I mean, that's the same one they chose in Watchmen. And
like, I would say that Reagan was far, far worse, considering that, full disclosure, like 99.9% of the issues that we're facing in the world today can be traced back, at least in part, to the Reagan administration.
Yeah, the whole Reaganomics thing.
There are still people who like and admire Reagan, so it would have been kind of a controversial choice. Nixon was definitely the safer option.
Yeah, I guess it's a matter of maliciousness versus incompetence. I don't know. Haven't really looked far into older politics.
The more you learn about the Reagan administration, the angrier you will get. I'll just leave it that.
Yeah, what I know about Reagan is not great.
So yeah, it's maybe better off that you haven't looked too much into it if you value your own sanity.
Mm-hmm. Like, beyond just Reaganomics, there was the AIDS crisis, there was just all of the Christian fundamentalism and the way he was tying that into politics in a way that had never been done before. Like I said, pretty much every problem we're facing now can be traced back to Reagan. So Bender's nightmare. Ones and zeros everywhere, and I thought I saw it too.
I just love that exchange. Like, don't worry, that's okay, Bender. There's no such thing as two.
Yes. Classic line. But blink and you'll miss it, and there was, in fact, a 2 there.
Yeah.
This rewatch was actually my first time ever noticing that too, but it is there. And then, of course, Bender's body is used by Nixon to vie for re-election, which...
It's such a stupid loophole. Like, no
It
body
really
can run
is.
for president can serve more than twice. It's like,
So here's the thing.
yes, but I have a new body. It's like,
Here's the thing. That is not the actual wording. The 22nd Amendment, Section 1 reads, and I quote, I am reading directly from it here, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. It is not no body, no person. This episode is based on a loophole that does not exist.
Well, you could argue he's no longer a person.
it is Futurama, so...
Again, it's a comedy. I just would be remiss if I didn't point that out.
It would be funny if that actually was true, because that is that is really fun when they do integrate some weird loophole that does exist in real life into fiction. The one example that kind of comes, it's not necessarily a loophole, but the example that comes to mind is the Da Vinci Code, where they talk about the Last Supper and it's like there is no actual Grail painted on the table anywhere. And it's like, well, yeah, that's true. And then of course they use that as like the basis, so it keeps the thing grounded in reality. But then of course you have Futurama, who's like, screw reality.
I mean, the Da Vinci Code is just like bullshit anyway.
Oh yeah, well, it's historical fiction. It's historical inspired fiction.
I mean, he got pretty much everything wrong, but fair point. You know, Richard Nixon singing Jefferson Airplane is not something I ever thought I would see, but good for Futurama, they deliver the unexpected.
He's doing it to the hippies. Which, there was a lot of weird hippie-centric jokes in this. It's like there's playing White Rabbit, there's the thing with the marijuana smokers, which is just like another group that it's like uncontroversial to hate, I suppose.
Well, I mean, Nixon was in this episode, and the 1960s, you know, were the era of that.
Of course.
Just makes sense. And of course, Fry is saying that we're appealing to your sense of decency, and everyone just laughs. Like, it's a joke, but honestly, this is the mistake the Democrats keep making in real life. They keep trying to appeal to the non-existent sense of decency in the Republican Party. If there was one at any point, it's not there now. Just a lust for power.
It's really sad.
I'd comment, but I'm just, I'm just, I don't really have anything I can say other than, yeah.
Yeah, and then meanwhile we have the Democrats, who sometimes I feel like they would rather be an opposition party than be in power, because then they have an excuse to not do anything. And I just keep sitting here reading the news and wanting to scream, do something!
They say don't be a bystander. Democrats are bystanders.
Not even that. They're bystanders who keep screaming at everyone else to calm down and not do anything. Like, any time that an actual leftist movement starts to, like, manifest, the Democrats are quick to stamp it out. They put more effort into doing that than they do into opposing Republicans, which is what I've been saying, and it's something I've been saying for years now.
So anyway, back on topic.
Yeah, it's hard to avoid this sort of thing with this kind of episode.
Yeah, obviously, but we really should try to focus on just the episode itself, because we could talk about this stuff for hours and get nowhere. Like, more qualified people than us have talked about this sort of thing ad nauseum on podcasts.
Absolutely.
So I'm not exactly sure what way would be accomplishing by doing that, and I don't know if our viewers really care too much. Obviously they care about it in knowing that, but we should focus on the episode.
Yeah, it's not why you're coming to this podcast.
Yeah, so the 60th president they had a statue of the 60th president, this giant alien creature.
Yes, and he's just got a mountain of skulls under him. It's a good joke.
I did the math, and the 60th president would have been somewhere around the 2100s.
I wonder if they changed the rules for who can run as president, so that now aliens can run.
He could have been an Earthborn alien.
That's true. He could have been born here. Although let's be real, a murderous alien, probably still not the worst president we've ever had. I mean, I'd still take him over Donald Trump.
Don't blame me. I voted for Kodos.
And we don't know who those skulls were.
Yeah, for all we know, those skulls could have actually belonged to, like, some opposing side in an intergalactic war.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's why they have a statue of them.
The skulls of fascists.
Could very well be.
I like that all the presidents' heads are drawn pretty much identically to how they appeared on The Simpsons. Which, I mean, yeah, it's Matt Groening, of course, but yeah. They didn't even, try to we already have these designs, let's just do them.
It's economical.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's Reaganomical.
Damn it, TZ.
Oh, no.
So I love the Watergate joke. They give you a discount if you've been here before. I was cracking up a bit at that.
I really like the grappling hook. Because, there's a lot of jokes you can make with a grappling hook, but I like that it's just a cute little robot.
Yeah. Although one thing that is kind of bothers me about, the fact that blank gate has become the universal language for any kind of a scandal after Watergate is the way that it's used is like, if Watergate were to happen now, it wouldn't even be called the Watergate scandal. It would be like Spygate or something.
Yeah, because the gate suffix brings to mind gatekeeping rather than whatever it's used for.
So that would be Keepergate.
I mean, it's not even what I was thinking, but
Well, that's how it comes to my mind, at least.
I suppose. So let's talk about the end of this episode. Frankly, the idea of a politician being destroyed by an audio recording is utterly laughable after the Trump presidency.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, if those 4 years ruined any one thing, it's the trope of the villain being undone by confessing their plans to the public. Because in real life, all of their supporters would just stick by them anyway and start screaming about how, well, it was taken out of context, or just criminy.
Yeah, and it applies to more than just presidency. Honestly.
Yeah, I feel like when Trump said he could stand out in the middle of the street and shoot someone and wouldn't lose a single supporter, I feel like maybe he wasn't lying.
That was not wrong.
What fucking world do we live in nowadays, man?
Makes you want to just vote an alien into office so that they can take care of all that stuff.
Yeah, let's call up the Martians.
Let's call the Martians. Let's call that squid from Watchmen to come get us to unite.
Alien Invasion 2024. Just end it already.
Adrian Veidt, where are you?
Honestly.
This seems like a good ending point.
You say that, but I don't want to end on such a depressing note.
I'm trying to think of the word, like, when someone... Oh, defeatist.
Yeah, that's...
Not to be defeatist or anything, but God, it really sucks right now.
Yeah.
Dear future listeners, I pray to whatever God may be out there that it's gotten better.
Oh, so you guys gonna go watch the Scary Door?
Yeah, a Scary Door marathon sounds good right about now.
Thank you for listening to Space Podcast 3000. Your three voices of the future are Nova Altman, Doug Hancox, and Eden Valerie. The theme music is Voxel Revolution by Kevin MacLeod. You can hear more episodes of Space Podcast 3000 on YouTube or at soundcloud.com/spacepod3k. You can support the show and listen to new episodes a full week early at patreon.com/spacepod3k. Follow us on Twitter at spacepod3k. Be sure to join us next time as the Planet Express crew get into the spirit of the holidays in Xmas Story.